I thought maybe she was ill and I didn't know about it. I didn't know. We didn't take her. I wasn't allowed to take her to a doctor. If she had some sort of virus or some sort of...
Fluorescent lights hum overhead like insects trapped in plastic. Tatiana Fusari sits in the witness box with her hands folded, eyes trembling, but voice steady. She blames her husband, Seth, for everything. She describes years of control, isolation, abuse. The jury watches this quiet mother finally speak her truth, and they want to believe her. Something in her performance triggers protection. Something in her tears triggers sympathy. But the prosecutors exchange a single glance. Just one. And in that glance lives a question that will destroy everything she's about to say. The narrator cuts through the courtroom silence with a voice that carries weight. What the world believed about this timid woman taking the stand, and what the evidence would later expose, were two entirely different realities. The camera focuses on Tatiana's face. Her composure, her strategic tears, her carefully constructed fragility. In the final hours of this trial, just minutes before the verdict would be announced, something happened that shocked everyone in that courtroom. A moment so unexpected that even the judge leaned forward. A moment where one man couldn't stop laughing. And then, when the verdict dropped, he did something no one expected. The hook lands. But this isn't about his reaction to the verdict. This is about what came before. This is about a child who never had a voice, and two parents who made a choice that would echo for the rest of their lives. Rural Michigan stretches flat and endless under August sky. The Welch property sits isolated on 40 acres, a farmhouse with weathered siding, a barn that holds equipment and secrets. The kind of place where you can scream and nobody hears. On social media, the image is wholesome. Religious quotes paired with golden hour photographs. Seth Welch appears confident, certain, almost evangelical in his posts about natural living and distrust of modern medicine. Tatiana appears behind him in many photos, quiet, positioned slightly off-center, the kind of woman people don't remember after seeing a group picture. Neighbors saw nothing alarming, nothing that prompted a welfare check, nothing that suggested a child was starving inside that house while her parents watched. The lifestyle seemed intentional, almost admirable. A family choosing to step outside the mainstream, rejecting pharmaceutical companies, rejecting unnecessary doctor visits, rejecting the velocity of modern life in favor of something slower. Something they claimed was more natural. But intention and outcome aren't always aligned. Belief systems don't feed children. Faith doesn't manufacture nutrition. And isolation creates space for things to happen that would never sustain the light of community. Behind that farmhouse door, something was happening that no one outside could see. Something that would transform two people with beliefs into two people with guilt. Baby Mary begins to show signs early in her life. Her weight fails to climb the growth curve. Her ribs become visible before they should be. Her eyes lose the brightness that belongs to infants. Weeks pass, then months. Tatiana notices because she changes her daughter's diapers. She bathes her. She holds her at night when the crying becomes weak instead of strong. She sees the deterioration happening in real time. She sees it and does nothing. Seth refuses medical help with the certainty of someone who's made this ideology his identity. He quotes scripture about prayer. He shares articles about pharmaceutical conspiracies online. He builds his entire belief system around the idea that doctors are unnecessary, that bodies heal naturally if given faith, if given belief, if given enough time. Tatiana claims fear. She says Seth wouldn't allow her to seek help. But the evidence that will later emerge shows something different. Shows phone records. Shows a woman who made calls to friends, to pharmacies, to stores. A woman who had access to transportation. A woman who could have reached a hospital in 20 minutes. A woman who chose not to. And in those silent weeks while Mary's body changed, while her tiny frame became skeletal, the countdown was already happening. The clock was running, and nobody in that house was trying to stop it. August 2nd, 2018. Morning light comes through the windows like it's any other day. Like it's a day that will pass and be forgotten. Mary lies in her crib. Her body is barely recognizable as a child's anymore. Sunken cheeks. Ribs that look like they might tear through paper-thin skin. Eyes that don't focus. Lips that don't move. She's not breathing the way living things breathe. Seth makes the call. His voice comes across the phone line flat, detached, clinical. She's dead as a doornail. 6 words that echo through that farmhouse and later echo through a courtroom and eventually echo through the nightmares of everyone who hears the recording. Not panic, not grief, not the voice of a parent discovering his child has stopped living. Just information delivered the way you might report the weather. Paramedics arrive. Police arrive. They see the house. They see the crib. They see the body of a child who has been starving for months. The recognition is immediate. This isn't sudden. This isn't accidental. This is months of choice compounded into a single, unresponsive body. Arrests happen within hours. Both parents taken from the home. Both parents separated. Both parents placed in cells where they begin to understand that their lives, as they knew them, are over. But the real shock, the moment that would make grown men uncomfortable, wouldn't happen in that farmhouse. It would happen in the courtroom, in front of the jury, in front of the judge. When the truth finally emerged, and 2 people realized there was nowhere left to hide. The interrogation room smells like stale coffee and fluorescent desperation. Detective Marcus Reynolds sits across from Tatiana Fusari with a stack of phone records between them. 43 minutes of silence have already passed. 43 minutes where Tatiana has said nothing, has claimed nothing, has just existed in that metal chair with her hands folded like she's praying. Then Marcus speaks. His voice isn't angry. It's worse. It's disappointed. It's the voice of a man who's heard this story before and watches it collapse every single time. You made 17 calls in July alone, he says, sliding the papers forward. To the grocery store, to your sister, to schedule appointments. You had a functioning phone. You had access to help. And you're telling me you couldn't call 911? Tatiana's face goes pale. The narrative she'd constructed in the holding cell shatters against the weight of those 17 calls, against the weight of evidence that proves she wasn't imprisoned, against the weight of truth that says she made a choice. She starts talking. Her story shifts. Now Seth was abusive. Now he was controlling. Now she was frightened. The words pour out rapid and desperate like water from a broken dam. But Marcus writes nothing. He's heard variations of this before. Women trying to rewrite history. Women hoping that changing their story will change the outcome. Women discovering too late that evidence doesn't care about performance. You had every opportunity, Marcus says quietly. Every single day, you had a chance to save your daughter's life. Instead, you made a choice, and now you're trying to tell me your husband made that choice for you. But the phone records don't support that story, Ms. Fusari. The phone records tell a different story altogether. Tatiana collapses into herself. Her hands cover her face. And through the observation window, Prosecutor Helena Dixon watches this moment and knows that the outcome is already decided. The only question remaining is how far each parent will go to save themselves. The interrogation room lights seemed to brighten as Marcus closed his notebook. And Tatiana understood something in that moment that would define everything that came next. The story she'd prepared was about to be destroyed by the truth. The courtroom doors open, and Tatiana walks forward in a blue dress she'd selected specifically for this moment. Modest, vulnerable. Designed to whisper instead of demand, Judge Theodore Harrison sits on the bench carrying the weight of Michigan law across his shoulders. The jury box fills with 12 people already prepared to believe her. People always prefer to believe the quiet woman is telling the truth. It feels safer. It feels more just. It feels like the world makes sense when victims speak and villains listen. She raises her hand, swears to tell the truth, takes the stand. Her eyes glisten immediately. Not crying yet, just on the edge. Just enough moisture to make jurors shift forward and prepare their sympathy like a cushion they're about to need. Seth controlled everything, Tatiana begins. Her voice cracks perfectly. The sound of it is engineered through years of practice. He wouldn't allow me to take Mary to doctors. He said modern medicine was poison. He said prayer and faith would keep her healthy. When I tried to argue, when I tried to push back, he would get angry. The jury absorbs this. One woman closes her eyes like she's hearing her own story. An older man nods slightly. They're already writing the narrative in their minds. Already casting Tatiana as the victim trapped in a household where an extremist had absolute control. Already preparing the verdict that will save her. Then the defense attorney stands. Her name is Victoria Mbatha, and she's built her entire career on the skill of reading what people don't say. She approaches the stand slowly. Her movements are precise and calculated. She doesn't attack. She collects information like evidence. Ms. Fusari, you mentioned Seth prevented you from seeking medical care. Can you describe a specific conversation? A moment when he explicitly said, "No doctor visits"? Tatiana hesitates. Specific moments require specific facts. Vague accusations are easy. They survive in sympathetic ears. But details are executioners. Details are where lies go to die. There were many times. He wouldn't allow it. Many times, Victoria repeats. So you should be able to recall at least one conversation clearly. When did this happen? Silence creeps across the courtroom, like something with weight and intention. Tatiana's eyes dart toward Seth, then toward her lawyer, then back to Victoria's face, which remains completely neutral. I can't remember exactly when, but I know he said, "Your phone records show you were active in neighborhood group chats, community apps. You texted with friends throughout the summer of 2018. You had a fully functioning phone. You reached out to people about other things. Why didn't you send one message to anyone indicating that your daughter was sick? Why didn't you text a single word asking for help?" "I was afraid," Tatiana says. "I was afraid he would find out. Did he monitor your phone? I thought he might. Ms. Fusari, yes or no? Did he monitor your phone? No, but the paramedics found no deleted messages, no secret conversations, no evidence of you trying to reach out to anyone. In fact, your medical records show you visited a gynecologist in May. You drove yourself. You sat in a waiting room full of medical professionals. You had access to doctors. You simply chose not to use that access for your daughter. Isn't that accurate? Tatiana's face transforms. The performance crumbles like something made of paper. There's no answer that saves her, because the only true answer is yes, and yes means guilt. Yes means she had choices. Yes means she made them. Yes means a child died because a mother decided that loyalty to her husband mattered more than her daughter's life. Judge Harrison leans forward. His voice is ice. His words are final. I'm prepared to rule on the duress defense. Based on the evidence presented, the court finds there is insufficient foundation for a claim of duress. The jury will not be permitted to consider duress as a legal defense in this case. The words hang in the courtroom like an execution order. Tatiana understands in that moment that the trial is over. The verdict was decided the moment those phone records were pulled. Everything that comes after is just procedure, just the machinery of justice turning, just the formality of consequence. Seth Welch walks to the witness stand like a man who's prepared for this moment his entire life. His movements are deliberate. His jaw is set. His eyes scan the courtroom before landing on Tatiana. When their gazes meet, his expression doesn't change. This is a man who's already decided how this ends, and he's made peace with it. He places his hand on the Bible, and the words come out automatic and rote. Swear to tell the truth. The whole truth. Nothing but the truth. He sits. The chair creaks slightly beneath his weight. The sound echoes. The prosecutor stands. Her name is Helena Dixon, and she's already won. She just needs to make it official. She needs to walk the jury through the logic of what happened and make sure they understand that both people in this room are responsible. Mr. Welch, Ms. Fusari has testified that you controlled her movements, monitored her phone, and prevented her from seeking medical care for your daughter. Is that true? No, Seth says flatly. That's a lie. Can you explain why she would make such claims? Because she's guilty. She's trying to make herself look like a victim when she was just as responsible as I am. More responsible, actually. She was home with Mary every day. She bathed her. She fed her. I was working. Tatiana had every opportunity to get help. She chose not to. The courtroom shifts. This is not the answer that saves him. This is a man accepting responsibility and then immediately transferring it to the woman sitting at the defense table. This is a man who understands he's going to prison and has decided that if he's falling, he's taking Tatiana with him. They're connected now not by love, but by shared guilt. They'll fall together. You mentioned your distrust of modern medicine. Tell the jury about that. I have concerns about unnecessary interventions. Pharmaceutical companies make drugs to keep people dependent on their products. They profit from sickness. I believe in natural healing, prayer, lifestyle choices, but I never prevented anyone from doing anything. Tatiana agreed with my approach. She wanted to raise Mary naturally. Can you provide evidence of her agreement? Seth hesitates. The pause is microscopic but noticeable. Every person in the jury catches it. That pause is a confession. That pause is him searching for a lie that will work and finding none. She told me after Mary was born that she wanted the same thing. You're saying she came to you with this idea? Yes. But the prosecution has presented testimony from multiple sources indicating you've been vocal about your anti-medicine beliefs for years. You've posted extensively on social media about pharmaceutical conspiracies. You've argued with friends and family about doctor visits. Isn't it more likely that Ms. Fusari was aligning herself with your beliefs rather than proposing them independently? Seth's jaw clenches. His hands tighten into fists. The tendons in his neck become visible. He knows he's been trapped by his own words. He knows that the truth is obvious to everyone in this room. The prosecutor approaches the stand. Her heels click against the floor. Every step is intentional. Every step is a countdown. Mr. Welch? When paramedics arrived and found Mary unresponsive in her crib, what did you tell the 911 dispatcher? I called for help. That's not what I asked. What were your exact words? I don't remember exactly. The recording has you saying she's dead as a doornail. Is that accurate? Silence. Seth's face hardens. His eyes go flat. He's back in that moment. He's reliving it. He's hearing his own voice coming back to him and understanding how it sounds to people who love their children. Yes. You found your daughter unresponsive, and your primary concern was providing information to the dispatcher. You didn't panic. You didn't cry. You didn't express shock or horror. You stated a fact with the same tone you might use to describe weather. Why? I was in shock. You were so devastated you couldn't manage basic emotion in your voice. Is that what you're asking us to believe? The defense attorney stands and objects. Judge Harrison sustains it. But the damage is already done. The jury has heard what they needed to hear. Both parents sat in that farmhouse. Both parents watched their daughter deteriorate. Both parents had the power to save her, and both parents chose not to. It's not about control or fear or ideology anymore. It's about two people making the same choice repeatedly, day after day, week after week, until a child stopped breathing and they finally called for help. It took a dead child to make them act, and that's a fact that will define them for the rest of their lives. The jury deliberates for 3 hours and 52 minutes. 3 hours and 52 minutes to review the medical examiner's findings. 5 months of documented malnutrition laid out in clinical language and photographs. Timeline analysis, proving both parents had access to vehicles, access to money, access to communication, access to hospitals. 3 hours and 52 minutes to understand that some crimes don't require violence or rage or obvious malice. Sometimes they just require indifference. Sometimes they just require time and the decision to do nothing while a child disappears from the inside out. The bailiff signals. The courtroom fills. Every seat taken. Every eye forward. Every breath held. Judge Theodore Harrison enters and sits. The jury files back in, and they look exhausted. They look like they've been carrying stones through their deliberation. Deshonda Wilson, the foreman, a woman with 3 children of her own, a woman who works as a social worker, looks like she's aged a decade in 4 hours. Her eyes are red. Her shoulders curve inward, like she's trying to protect something inside herself. On the count of felony murder, how does the jury find? Deshonda's voice is steady, but quiet. It carries the weight of the decision they've made. Guilty. On the count of first-degree child abuse, how does the jury find? Guilty. The word repeats for each count. Guilty, guilty, guilty. The word becomes rhythm. The word becomes inevitable. It becomes the only possible outcome given the evidence. Seth's face doesn't change. He stares forward like he's watching something no one else in the courtroom can see, something that only he understands. Tatiana's hands grip the defense table until her knuckles lose color, until the skin stretches white and bloodless across bone. There's no triumph in this courtroom, no satisfaction, no sense that justice has been served in any traditional sense. Just the weight of a death that time won't lighten, a death that sentences don't explain, a death that defines everyone who had any what in it. Judge Harrison addresses them. His voice carries the weight of 18 years on the bench, 20 years as a prosecutor before that. Countless cases, countless crimes. But this one lands differently. This one involves a child who never had a voice in any of the decisions that ended her life. Tatiana Fusari and Seth Welch, you have been found guilty of the death of Mary Welch. This child was entirely dependent on you for survival. You had the capacity to save her life. You had the opportunity. You had the resources. You made the choice not to. On all counts, I sentence you each to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The gavel strikes. The sound echoes through the courtroom like a period at the end of a sentence. Seth and Tatiana are led away in separate directions. They don't look at each other. They don't acknowledge what they shared. They simply accept the machinery of consequences and disappear into the system that will contain them for the rest of their lives. They'll wake up in prison cells every morning. They'll eat meals they don't have to prepare. They'll breathe air that isn't their own. They'll exist in a space smaller than the farmhouse that held Mary's last weeks. And they'll do it knowing what they know about each other, knowing that each of them bore witness to the other's choices. That complicity doesn't disappear because a judge declares it. That guilt doesn't diminish because it's shared. There's a question that follows this case like a shadow that doesn't fade. Not a legal question, not one that courtrooms can answer with verdicts and sentences. It's a question about the nature of responsibility, about what it means to know something is wrong and choose to do nothing, about how ideology and fear can combine into something that looks, from outside, like ordinary parenting, and from inside looks like abandonment, about how a mother can hold her daughter every single day and watch her disappear. Was Tatiana Fusari a victim of control, or was she a mother who made a daily choice to prioritize her marriage over the survival of her child? The answer might be that those things aren't opposites. That fear and agency can exist together in the same moment. That people make choices under pressure, and sometimes those choices become habits, and sometimes habits become a way of life that feels almost normal until the moment it becomes undeniable. Seth Welch's distrust of modern medicine isn't unique. Plenty of people question pharmaceutical companies. Plenty of people believe that prayer can heal. Plenty of people value natural approaches to health. What made his beliefs dangerous wasn't their existence. It was his refusal to change them when his daughter's body showed signs of starvation. It was his insistence on them, even as her eyes sank deeper into her skull. Even as her ribs became visible beneath paper-thin skin. Even as her body stopped moving the way living bodies move. Even as her breathing became shallow and then stopped altogether. Mary Welch had no beliefs. She had no ideology. She had no control over anything that happened to her. She had only a need, a basic biological need for food, a need that went unmet for months, by her mother, by her father, by the two people whose only job on this earth was to keep her alive. They failed. Completely. Absolutely. Irrevocably. And that failure is something they'll carry for the rest of their lives. In the end, this case reveals something uncomfortable about how harm happens in families. It's rarely sudden. It's rarely the work of a monster wearing a clear mask. It's usually the accumulation of small choices. A decision not to call. A decision to trust ideology over evidence. A decision to stay silent. A decision made once, then twice, then 100 times. Each decision smaller than the last, each one easier than the one before it. Until one morning, a child stops breathing, and two adults realize they've constructed their own prison sentence through choices they made every single day. If you're watching this and something in this case resonates with you, I need you to listen carefully. If you know a child showing signs of neglect, if you know someone living in isolation under control, if you know a parent whose beliefs have replaced their compassion for their child's safety, act now. Don't wait. Don't stay silent. One phone call, one decision to prioritize a child over loyalty. One moment where you choose to be brave instead of comfortable. That's the difference between tragedy and rescue. That's the difference between a child who dies and a child who survives. Subscribe to this channel right now and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the stories that matter. The stories about real people making real choices with real consequences. Stories that inspire action. Stories that make you think about the world differently. Stories about victims who deserve to be remembered. Stories about the moments where someone could have acted and didn't. Stories about the moments where someone did act and changed everything. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what you think about this case. Tell us how you would have acted differently. Tell us what this story means to you. Your thoughts, your perspective. Your voice matters because sometimes hearing from another person is exactly what gives someone the courage to step in and save a life. Your comment might inspire someone watching this video to make a phone call they've been afraid to make. Your comment might give someone permission to report what they've seen. Your comment might be the thing that saves a child. This channel exists to tell these stories, to make sure victims are remembered, and to inspire you to be the person who acts when you see something wrong. Don't miss our next story. Subscribe now. Turn on notifications and help us build a community where silence is never an option. Because the only thing standing between a tragedy and a rescue is one person deciding to speak up. Be that person.